Hey, it's Jessica, the editor for Voices of the ARVN, and before the film comes out, I thought I'd just give you a quick rundown of the events surrounding the Vietnam War. Since the late 1880s, the area now known as Vietnam was a part of French Indochina under French colonization. After a series of armed conflicts and the adoption of the Geneva Accord of 1954, the French left Vietnam entirely, leaving behind four countries: Laos, Cambodia, North Vietnam, and South Vietnam. The Soviet Union and newly communist China backed the communist regime in North Vietnam, and fearing the spread of communism throughout Southeast Asia, the United States agreed to support South Vietnam. In 1968, the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong start what is now known as the Tet Offensive, one of the biggest and bloodiest campaigns of the entire war. South Vietnamese and U.S. forces drove off the opposing forces in a military success, but for U.S. politicians it was a political defeat, as the media reporting on it only saw the bloodshed. In early 1973, all parties involved signed the Paris Peace Accords, ending U.S. direct involvement in the Vietnam War. The North Vietnamese accept a ceasefire and the U.S. troops withdraw. Fighting began almost immediately after the agreement was signed due to a series of mutual retaliations, and by March 1973, full-fledged war had resumed. Then, in 1974, President Nixon resigns in the face of likely impeachment after the Watergate scandal is revealed. Gerald Ford becomes president, and in January 1975, President Ford rules out any further U.S. military involvement in Vietnam. Finally, on April 30, 1975, North Vietnam invaded Saigon, and South Vietnam surrendered, ending the war. By the end of the war, more than 58,000 Americans lost their lives, along with 250,000 South Vietnamese soldiers. 1.1 million North Vietnamese and Viet Cong fighters were killed, and more than 2 million civilians were killed on both sides of the war. After the war, between 1 and 2.5 million Vietnamese citizens were told to report to a re-education camp to, quote, learn about the ways of the new government. The government said re-education would only last for 10 days and at most 2 weeks. However, once there, the men were detained for many years in grueling labor camps. Today, Vietnam remains a one-party communist state.